Have you ever heard the saying, don't trade what's certain for what's uncertain? Well, in the NHL world, sometimes you need to trade the uncertain for the reliable. And when the reliable comes with full name, Bryan Rust, and you're desperate for an offensive solution without Mitch Marner on the roster, that trade stops being Plan B and becomes the only realistic path forward. The Toronto Maple Leafs offseason feels like one of those grandma's cake recipes, full of strange ingredients. But if everything goes right, it turns out delicious. Except now, there's a new ingredient, Rust. And it's not powdered. He comes with 30 goals, playoff experience, 2 Stanley Cups, and a relatively fair contract for what he brings. On the other side, the Pittsburgh Penguins are starting to look in the mirror and ask, is it finally time to rebuild this roster? The trade is on the table. The pieces are there. But does it make sense? Let's break it all down together. From the behind the scenes of negotiations to Bryan Rust's real impact in the Leafs' top 6. Can he truly replace Marner? And what do the Penguins gain from this, besides 3 players who look like leftovers from the back of Toronto's fridge? Today, we dive deep into this proposal. So pull up a chair, grab your coffee or a cold beer, depending on the hour, and let's talk. The Toronto Maple Leafs are searching for a new top 6 winger to fill the hole that Mitch Marner will inevitably leave, whether by trade, cap force restructuring, or simply the natural wear and tear in the relationship between player and franchise. The fact is the team needs a new offensive reference point, and that's where Bryan Rust comes onto the radar. According to sources like the Fourth Period, Rust's name has been floating around in trade talks for a while now. He has no trade protection, which makes any transaction easier. Yes, he's 33 years old, but he's still coming off a solid 30-goal season. He's healthy, playing meaningful minutes, and most importantly, he's a playoff performer. The kind of quiet grit that shows up when the stars fade. The speculative trade proposal is simple. Asterisk Leafs receive Bryan Rust. Asterisk Penguins receive Järnkrok, David Kämpf, and Thrun. But behind that simplicity lies a tactical, emotional, and even political complexity that needs to be calmly analyzed. Let's take a couple of steps back. The 2024-25 season ended on a bittersweet note for the Leafs. Austin Matthews re-signed. Nylander exploded offensively, but Marner fluctuated between flashes of brilliance and quiet nights. The fans, growing more impatient, are starting to demand real change. And management knows you can't keep this core together without giving up at least one valuable piece. The Penguins, meanwhile, started a partial sell-off at the last trade deadline. They moved out depth pieces, tried to trade Rust, but the asking price scared teams off. Now, with a quieter summer and more time to structure better offers, the landscape has shifted, and Toronto is emerging as one of the top suitors. This isn't the first time the Leafs and Penguins have flirted with a trade. Both franchises know the value of veteran players and how heavy decisions weigh in demanding markets. Toronto wants to win now. Pittsburgh wants to stay competitive while refreshing the roster. This is the point where both needs intersect. Let's start with Bryan Rust. Not flashy, but extremely dependable. Over the last 5 seasons, he's scored more than 110 goals. He's a quick transition player, smart without the puck, and excellent on the forecheck. His average ice time last season was over 17 minutes per game, showing the coaches trust in him in all situations. His contract? $5.125 million through 2027. Not a bargain, but fair for what he brings, especially in a market inflated by contracts like Tavares and Marner's, which surpassed $10 million. Asterisk Järnkrok. Versatile. Can play either wing, solid on the PK, and has a decent shot. $2.1 million cap hit. Asterisk David Kämpf. Excellent in the face-off circle, great defensive forward, but very limited offensive production. $2.4 million cap hit. Asterisk Thrun. A promising young left-shot defenseman with high hockey IQ. Could become a 4th or even 3rd defenseman in the rotation. Together, they total about $5.8 million in cap space, which would give the Leafs slight cap relief and open a roster spot. Rust is one of those guys who wins over the locker room quietly. When he arrived in Pittsburgh, many doubted he'd stick around. He was too small for the physical game, not highly touted, but he proved everyone wrong with effort and smarts. He won 2 cups and became an extension of the coach on the ice. Järnkrok is known as a consummate professional. Never complains about which line he's on, always ready to step in when there's an injury. Kämpf, meanwhile, is highly respected in the room, a quiet leader. And Thrun? Still a bit of mystery, but with good marks in the development system. In Toronto, Rust would slide straight into the top 6, likely next to Matthews and Knies, or possibly with Nylander, depending on the lineup. He brings something Marner doesn't. Vertical play, quick release, and less dependence on open ice. In Pittsburgh, Järnkrok could easily eat up top 6 minutes if needed. Kämpf becomes a shutdown and PK option. Thrun can compete for a spot in training camp and develop over the season. This trade resembles recent moves like Blake Coleman to Flames or even Zach Hyman to the Oilers. Players who don't shine on their own, but help the stars shine brighter. Rust fits that mold. Bo Horvat, Sam Reinhart, Brandon Saad, all were traded at similar points in their careers and all exceeded expectations when inserted into structured systems. The precedent is on Rust's side. Insiders like Frank Saravalli have said, Rust is one of the most underrated names on the market. Whoever gets him is getting a leader and a finisher. Anthony Stewart adds, Toronto needs players like that. Marner is brilliant, but Rust gets things done. For the Leafs, they replace Marner with a consistent veteran, clear cap space, and stay competitive without sacrificing the future. For the Penguins, they receive tradable pieces. Järnkrok and Kämpf could become draft picks, gain youth with Thrun, and transition wisely. Imagine the perfect fit. Rust becomes a 25 to 30 goal scorer in Toronto. Matthews rediscovers his best game. Knies grows under Rust's wing. On the other side, Järnkrok becomes a trade chip in February. Kämpf locks down PK duties in Pittsburgh. Thrun becomes a regular in 2 years. Do the Leafs finally break through the second-round curse? No guarantees. But trades like this lay the groundwork. So, what do you think? Does this trade make sense to you? Or are you in the camp that sees Rust as just duct tape on a sinking ship? Drop your thoughts below. Who wins this trade? Leafs or Penguins? Would you keep Marner or trade him now while he still holds value? Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon, because in the coming weeks we'll dive into other trade possibilities, including one involving a certain team from Ottawa that has its eyes on Tyler Bertuzzi. Thanks, and see you in the next video.